You're watching TYT Now. My name is Tina Dupuy, and with me is Tim Mahalski. And we're going to start off the show, which is I'm really excited about. Normally, I'm not, but tonight I am. With us on the line is Congressman Alan Grayson. Alan, how are you?
Fine, but I'm not sure I can live up to that introduction. You really think I'm exciting?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. You have some news.
Yes, I'm running for Congress.
That's fantastic. What made you change your mind?
Well, a number of things. As I mentioned to some supporters the day before yesterday, a woman contacted me a few weeks ago, and she told me that she was in the hospital. Her husband was dying. He had had multiple organ failure. He was a veteran. The Veterans Administration wasn't covering his bills. And he had had hepatitis when he was 30, so the insurance companies wouldn't go anywhere near him. And day after day, the bills were mounting, thousands of dollars a day, and they didn't know what to do about it. So I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm not in Congress any longer. I'm not sure what I can do to help. And she said, you can run again. She said that nobody ever cared for people like them except for me, and that her husband wanted somebody in Congress who couldn't be bought or sold. And I wasn't sure exactly what to say, so I said yes. I said, I'll run again. And her husband died on June 30th. He wanted me to actually announce in the hospital next to his bed, but that didn't happen. She told me that she would pray and let him know that I was running. So I'm in.
Wow. This is my favorite quote about you recently, is that at the Orlando Sentinel, Scott Maxwell said that you were a hero to many on the left and a gag reflex to many on the right.
Yeah, we actually set out to accomplish both of those things, and in both regards we were successful.
But I find you to be outspoken, but I don't find you to be more liberal than people like George Miller. So why have you become this flashpoint in Congress? I mean, why? It's not politics. I mean, there are people who agree with you, who are arguably as liberal as you are. Why? Why are you different?
I think they can't stand it when I call them on their crap. When I said that the Republican health care plan is just don't get sick, that not only was funny, but true. And that was what really bothered them, the fact that somebody was mocking and ridiculing their utter lack of concern for the lives of ordinary people. And I pretty much stuck to that.
Alan, you call yourself a congressman with guts. How do you have guts compared to a potential opponent?
Well, I don't have an opponent right now. I think we can all understand how the gentleman who beat me last time wouldn't fit that description. He does whatever the filthy rich tell him to do, like pretty much all of the new Republicans elected to Congress last year. I don't see much sign of guts in them. But it's understandable because, they didn't really have to work for the job. They had the polluters and Wall Street and big oil drop millions and millions of dollars on the heads of people like me with negative advertising that called me a liar, a loudmouth, a national embarrassment, a dog, and an evil clown. And so they didn't really have to do anything. All they had to do was just not be a Democrat running in 2010. And I think that the Koch brothers would have been happy if I was replaced by a ham sandwich. They don't care. Amazingly, Orlando has 600,000 people. None of our Republican congressmen, and basically in Florida they're almost all Republican now, thanks to Citizens United, none of our Republican congressmen even has an office in Orlando. They're literally ignoring 600,000 people. I think you all out in California have been through this now for 20 years or so you understand what it's like to see misleading ads on TV, incessantly banging on one side or the other for special interests and only for special interests. Here in Florida, it's a relatively new phenomenon. People weren't used to it. They would see an ad run by an organization called 60 Plus that excoriated me and lied about me. And they wouldn't stop to think that 60-plus might be the insurance companies who are upset about the fact that I wanted to open up Medicare to anybody who'd pay for it. But, as I said, in California, people seem to be learning to separate truth from fiction, and hopefully over time the rest of the country will as well.
All right, speaking of truth, I mean, I think this is really important to anybody who is thinking of supporting you or kind of on the fence, that you really rose to prominence suing military contractors in Iraq during the American invasion, right? And you also have a background in economics, which makes you not a Republican.
Right. I know 2 + 2 actually is 4, right. And I don't have to look it up in the Bible.
Right. That cutting jobs. Right. Cutting jobs doesn't create jobs.
Right. No, I mean, what you say is true. I was the only member of Congress to actually have ever worked as an economist. I worked as an economist for 4 years before I finished law school. I actually bothered to read things like the Federal Reserve reports and see the utter pounding that the middle class has been taking for the past 3 years, 4 years. Actually going back 5 years, because the housing market had peaked in 2006. And it's not pretty. But after I left law school, I did some work for now Justice Ginsburg, and even now Justice Scalia. I worked with him too.
Wow.
And I set up my own firm, and we prosecuted war profiteers in Iraq after the war started, because there was so much of it to do. And I am still today the only attorney ever to take a case against war profiteers in Iraq to trial. We won a $14 million verdict, and Taxpayers Against Fraud named me Attorney of the Year. I actually went back to that recently when I left Congress, because I needed something to do to get out of the house. And we won an $8 million settlement against another Iraq contractor fraud perpetrator just a couple of months ago. So there's no shortage of that work, because there's no shortage of fraud in Iraq. If people could see what I have seen over the past few years, they would recognize how important it is to bring the troops home.
Alan, we don't have much time left, but I did want to get you just to comment on the debt ceiling.
Well, first of all, I am just sick and tired of seeing the Republicans set the terms of debate. We live in a country now where 22 million people can't find full-time work. We have 6 million people who've been out of work for more than 6 months, and God only knows how they're paying their bills. We have 8 million more people who are now out of work. We have 8 million more beyond that who only have part-time work and can't find full-time work even though they're looking for it. We have 50 million people in this country who can't see a doctor when they're sick. We have about 30 million families in this country whose home is worth less than the mortgage. They owe more than they own. They're underwater and they must feel like they're drowning. And I happen to be one of them. My house is actually worth less than the mortgage on my house. It seems to me that these are the things that maybe we should be concentrating on, and not concentrating on what the budget's going to be in the year 2021. Or even, for that matter, concentrating on the very unlikely prospect that the Social Security system might or might money in the year 2037. But instead, the Republicans insist that we have to cut $2 trillion out of the budget in the next 10 years, without even telling us how they would do it. I've been listening very carefully for the past 2 or 3 months, and I have yet to hear any specific proposal from the Republicans to cut a penny from the budget. Not one penny. But they get the credit for being the serious ones who want to do something about the fiscal crisis in the year 2021. Well, I have a solution. My solution is very simple. If you really wanted to save $2 trillion in the next 10 years, you could actually try peace. We could give peace a chance. Last year, we spent $157 billion in Iraq and Afghanistan. This year, we have 3 wars, not 2, and the cost is that much higher. And if you actually spell it out and calculate it for the next 10 years, if we don't bring the troops home, we'll be spending $2 trillion in appropriated funds and something like another $2 trillion in non-appropriated funds. So if you really think that the thing we need to be concentrating on right now is reducing the deficit in 2021. That's the solution. That solution is called peace.
Well said. Alan Grayson, he's in. You'll come back, right, Alan?
Anytime, any place.
Thank you so much.
Good
to talk to you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Let's give peace a chance.
Give peace a chance. You know what? I like that as a bumper sticker. I like that. Alan Grayson, 2012, give peace a chance.
I like it.
Fantastic. I mean, I ran into him the other day, and it was like, we've missed him.
Yeah.
Someone needs to be saying this stuff because obviously no one in Congress is doing it. But
definitely has guts.
Right. No, he's a congressman. But I don't even understand why this takes guts. I mean, him being liberal he's not as liberal as other people. It's like he has a way of articulating it and saying the stuff that liberals should be saying. I don't understand. Yeah, he is logical.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe him.
He is logical. It makes sense. He is logical.
Yeah.
He's an economist, and he needs to be back in Congress. So, but let's moving on to the next subject because we need to talk about this. This has been craziness happening. This is actually, I would say, this is a liberal fantasy coming to fruition because there's nothing more what's called schadenfreude than watching Rupert Murdoch just go down in flames. Let's play this video. In case you are not caught up on this whole saga, let's play this video and get you on board with what we're going to be talking about.
Holding a copy of the final edition of Britain's News of the World newspaper, Rupert Murdoch rides into the London offices of his newspaper division. The tabloid published for the last time Sunday. The worldwide media mogul shut the 168-year-old publication following allegations the paper's journalists paid police for information and hacked into the voicemails of young murder victims and grieving families of dead soldiers.
I think if you've done wrong, you've got to face the consequences, and obviously they've done wrong. An example has to be set. But at the same time, someone needs a paper to read, someone needs to know the news. So it's sad to see it go in a way.
There are concerns in Britain's media industry that a police probe won't stop with the news of the world. Even Prime Minister David Cameron has conceded that politicians and the tabloids have developed a too cozy relationship. His former communications chief was one of 3 men arrested this week as part of the investigation. Andy Coulson is an ex-editor of News of the World. As the final issue went to press, the assistant police commissioner expressed extreme regret that he did not act to reopen police inquiries into phone hacking 2 years ago. Britain's government has also signaled a delay in Murdoch's $19 billion takeover of British Sky Broadcasting. Some see shuttering News of the World as a desperate attempt to save the transaction. The 8,674th edition apologizes for letting the paper's readers down. It stopped short of acknowledging recent allegations. A full-page editorial read, "Quite simply, we lost our way. Phones were hacked, and for that, this newspaper is truly sorry." Matt Friedman, The Associated Press.
Here's the thing. The News of the World was a British tabloid, but News Corp is an American company.
Right.
It's not a foreign company. It has stakes in other countries, but it is based in the U.S. So this is a U.S. company that owns tons of media. We're talking not just Fox News, but also HarperCollins. I mean, there's a huge media empire that they're now finding is pretty much rotten from the top. That they were hacking into to the British royal family and to 4,000 people.
What I love about their apology, though, is that they talk about the hacking as though it was an accident, so they didn't have control over it. Phones were hacked and we're truly sorry. No, you hacked, so therefore.
But it's not. Yeah, we did it once. Oops, you caught us.
Right.
Yeah, it's like someone hacked my account and showed my wiener. No, I mean it was like this was like widespread. When they talk about 4,000 people, they're not talking about oops, accidentally. Right.
It sounds like their business model.
Right. It sounds like their practice. You got it. You got it. This sounds like the intern comes in and they're like, we're going to show you how to hack a phone.
Right.
Right. This is how we get scoops. But so this is an American company again. Keep on wanting to say country. It's not. It's an American company. But so now we have Frank Lautenberg from New Jersey now writing to the Attorney General Eric Holder saying that they need to investigate News Corporation under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act of 1977 because there have been these reports of them doing illegal activities, and they should be now investigated by the Attorney General.
Yeah, I mean, investigated to the fullest. This is, I think that it's bigger than what is being portrayed. I think that there's, once they start digging, more is going to come out. And I mean, like I said, this seems to be a business model for them of how they got exclusives and stories. So, I mean, absolutely, this is an American company. Let's look into it.
Right, and the thing that I find to be really interesting about this story is that Fox News can't spin it into being somehow that Obama did this, because it started, in Britain, and the first paper to fall was a British tabloid. There's no way to make this into some kind of liberal conspiracy that Obama had his hand in whatever, and so there's just they did this to themselves. Mm-hmm. They did this to themselves. They decided to do this kind of corrupt journalism, and it's not even that they hacked into people's phones. It's that they were bribing police officials in Britain. So, and if that happened, if there were American citizens who were hacked by this corporation, they are toast. It's going to get really bad.
What I found interesting, though, is I watched the LA edition of Fox News this morning.
Yes.
For about, I would say, roughly about 2 hours.
Because you're a masochist?
Just because it's Good Day LA, so why not? And they did one story for about 45 seconds on this. No one commented, no one had anything to say, and they just moved on.
They said Murdoch's in trouble and Britney Spears.
Yeah, basically. That was how they did it. And I just thought that was really interesting. You don't want to... Why not? Why aren't you going to talk about this?
Why would that be any way interesting? Well, because it's a corrupt organization. It's not even like we are alleging it's corrupt. It's actually corrupt. There's actual proof of corruption and bribery on foreign soil. And this again is a U.S. company. And yeah, I'm a little, I'm having a little bit of fun with this. This is, Schadenfreude. It has to be a German word to make this to really give the full extent of my emotions right now. But it's one of the, if you would have heard this a year ago, it would have been it would be on some liberal blog in the corner of the internet.
Oh, the liberal media would be the one portraying that. Oh, okay.
It would be, but it would be something that, like rumors like the Koch brothers and all this stuff that sound like a conspiracy theory. Here we go. This is actual news.
Proof.
News Corp is, this is not ending today. This is still kind of, we'll call it snowballing. Tim, have you ever heard of a fake Democrat?
No.
Because the Republicans have a rhino, it's a way to make them, it's a Republican in name only. They can kind of, decide that if you're not conservative enough, then you're a fake Republican. But, Democrats don't have that. They have the blue dogs, but, but there was actually 6 fake Democrats who ran in the special election, the recall election in Wisconsin, which are basically, this was like, Sam, walk us through this. This is basically a dirty trick by the Republicans that was very open so that they could push back the recall elections by a month. Is that right?
Right, and they weren't successful in running these fake candidates. They all lost last night.
But do you think that they were successful in that they just made things more complicated? They kind of muddied the waters. Maybe people are going to get sick of taking that time off to vote?
Absolutely. In forcing people to take time off to vote, right? So now people have to do it again. People are going to have to vote again. It was also very costly. This whole process of having the recalls in general is a very costly process. Now to have the primaries is also very costly. Yesterday I was in Baraboo, Wisconsin for the morning interviewing people at the polls. And a lot of people were just upset that the primaries were happening at all because they, like you just said, they had to take time off of work, but it was also just, a lot of people told me, a waste of taxpayers' money.
Right. I've poll watched, and you have people who will line up at 5 o'clock in the morning. There'll be a line because they want to be able to vote before they go to work, and then for the rest of the day, especially on Tuesdays, there's nobody there. But Sam, I want to talk about you because we're going to watch this video that you posted because you have been following this. I know I was there in March. in Wisconsin, and I saw you working there. I know you've been there the entire time in the Capitol for this whole union stripping attempt by Scott Walker. But we're going to watch this video, and I want to ask you a couple of questions about it.
Hello, I'm Sam Mayfield in Madison, Wisconsin. June 6th started out to be a regular working day for me, and went into the state capitol to see what was going on inside regarding the Supreme Court hearings. After I walked in the doors, an officer grabbed me and told me to leave. I told him I was with the press. He allowed me to pass. Hey there, hi, I'm press.
Out.
Sam. Yeah, Sam. You got it?
It's evidence.
Sir? So, what are we being held for right now?
Sam, you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech! Freedom of speech!
I'm not trying to get out. I'm not trying to get out. I know I can't get out that way. I know I can't get out.
So why did you grab me? And why did you...
I told you to leave before, and then we had more come in.
I was inside the Capitol building. Why on earth would I leave? Excuse me, she's shaking and trembling. We need to give her a moment. Excuse me. Excuse me. This is not safe right now. Do you see what's happening to her body?
I have bruises on my arms from where the officer grabbed me. Alex has bruises all over her wrists and all over her arms as well. Eventually I was charged with disorderly conduct, and I have a court date set for June 17th. It's impossible not to feel as though I was directly targeted as a member of the press.
So Sam, it doesn't show it in this video, but you were actually, there's another video of you getting straight up tackled by a giant bald police officer in the Capitol.
Yep. That is right.
And you're about, 2/3 the size, if I'm really being generous to how tall you are.
Yeah.
What happened on June 17th?
On June 17th, not much happened on June 17th. That was the pre-trial court date, and my attorney just entered a plea of not guilty. Then I had an actual court, date in court. That was last week. My attorney, Lester Pines, that was on July 8th. My attorney, Lester Pines, and I went to the Dane County Courthouse at 3 o'clock, and he, along with the entered plea of not guilty, had a conversation with the district attorney, whereupon the district attorney decided to drop my charges and drop my fine of $263.50. So all charges were dropped for myself and for Alex. Neither one of us had to pay a fine, and now I can get back to work.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Am I mistaken in saying that you were the only journalist to be arrested so far in this whole demonstration? The last 4 or 5 months now into this administration?
Yeah, as I understand, that's true. And that week of my arrest, June 6th, we saw more people get arrested that week than we did the 4 months collectively.
And just to clarify, these are the Capitol Police that are arresting people, because the Madison Police Chief told that his officers, and I interviewed them and I talked to them, they said that their police chief said that they would not be used for political purposes, period. So the people who were arresting, the officer who arrested you and who arresting other people worked for the county. Is that right?
Yeah, this was Capitol Police, right?
Okay.
And then there were also, I think on that day there weren't state troopers in the Capitol that day. But there were state troopers around the Capitol during that week. But yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay, so we have these fake Democrats that are going away. So what's next is it's August 9th is the general election against the 6 recalled Republicans and the 3 recalled Democrats.
Right. Well, so yesterday we had those primaries with the Democrats. Then we're going to have another primary next week, next Tuesday, and then you're right, August 9th is when we're going to see the actual elections for, so for instance, yesterday all 6 of the Democrats won. None of the fake Democrats won. So August 9th we're going to see the next round of elections for those Democrats.
Right, because it's summer and people just can't get enough of voting.
Yeah.
The thing that I find interesting...
I know. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was Sleeperville yesterday at the polls. I mean, it was not jam-packed. I went there with a reporter from WORT Radio, and she and I were talking, and she said, people are not exactly banging down the door here, and they're really not. And at all 3 polling locations where I went, we didn't see massive numbers of people. 9 a.m., one poll, 65 people. 11 a.m., another poll, 112 people. And now Baraboo, Wisconsin is a small place. It's about 12,000 people.
Right.
But considering the amount of money that has been spent on this primary alone, and considering the considering the amount of attention that this has been given, we didn't see a huge amount of people turning out to vote. It's not an easy time of year to get people to the polling places. I mean, a lot of people aren't in town. I spoke to people yesterday who aren't going to be able to vote next week because they're not in town. They're doing it by absentee. But absolutely, it's an issue.
The thing that is interesting to me about this Wisconsin story is how much it shows that Wisconsin is still a purple state. Scott Walker didn't manage to swing a landslide for the, we were all watching the Supreme Court election. That was the first time really anybody was even contested in the Supreme Court. It was like, I guess it was only once in the history of Wisconsin has an incumbent Supreme Court justice not gotten reelected. So, but it was close this time as opposed to being, a landslide for the liberal justice. Even now it's like it's another nail biter. There's 6 Democrats and 3 Republicans, and it could be down to a couple of votes again. And so this tactic of just stretching stuff out and making it and just kind of like making it painful as possible for the voters. I know that there's a lot of they just passed a couple of new laws to make you have to have ID, and there's like a bunch of bureaucratic stuff. Because Republicans hate bureaucracy so much, that's why they implement it when it comes to voting. That just to make this purple state that's pretty could go either way to favor the Republicans due to inaction.
Absolutely. I mean, just right now at the Capitol, literally at this moment, room 412 East, there's a meeting being held regarding redistricting just before the election.
Right.
I mean, yesterday so many people are talking about these very things.
Right. Sam, I'm really excited to see your documentary, and I thank you for your service and for being there on the ground and for documenting this. Thanks for calling in, and we'll talk to you soon, August 9th.
Yeah, great. Tina, thanks for having me. Take care.
Thanks, Sam. Be well.
Bye.
Dirty tricks.
Very.
Not cheap though.
Yeah.
So it's a boom time for political operatives to do dirty stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not even like they're denying it. I mean they're called the fake Democrats in the press. They're not. It's not like they're not letting people know what they're doing, but.
And it's about money, and yet it's wasting money. I mean, the fake Democrats are wasting. I mean, it's.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really disgusting. It's really despicable. It should be shameful to do this kind of stuff. I mean, it's not democratic the way the Republicans in Wisconsin are doing this. I mean, it's strong arming and trying to use rules to basically use bureaucracy to their advantage.
Yeah.
So,
which I thought they hated.
So we have these dirty Republicans that are doing exactly what we expect them to do, which is disenfranchise voters and come out against homosexuals and homosexual marriage and whatever, right? And then we have, and everybody's trying to get to the right of the Tea Party, which is absolutely impossible because they've gone off a cliff a long time ago. They no longer. It was this week where the Tea Party no longer wants to see public schools for whatever reason, and so
because everyone should pay for their own schooling, right? It's not the government's responsibility.
No, it should be all private. No, the government should subsidize. Well, I mean, not having private schools means basically that you don't have to teach evolution, and you can teach that
Adam and Eve.
Right, and the world was created 3,000 weeks ago or whatever. 3,000 seconds ago.
In 7 days.
You can teach whatever you want because there's not standards, and it's really extreme. Sorry, it's extreme, and the Tea Party is becoming. It has been extreme, and it's gotten even more extreme. So then you have Michelle Bachmann, who I would call an extremist incumbent, which is there's a lot of people who aren't even incumbent. There's like her and Ron Paul who are running for president, and they're the only incumbents. Ron Paul announced this week that he is not going to be reelected. He's not going to. In 2012, this is it for him in Congress. So you have basically one person, Michelle Bachmann, who's a current incumbent who wants to, keep her House seat unless she becomes president. Right. So you have these people that they're all trying to kind of outdo each other in throwing homosexuals under the bus or whatever. And then we have this guy, Gary Johnson. He's running for president. Really, it happened, and he has executive experience.
Really?
Right. But I want you to see this ad because, this is not a Republican. Let's watch this. Wait a second, tolerance?
What?
Less
government?
What?
Republican?
But like tolerance and not discriminating against others for the way they were born? What?
Or what they want to do with their lives? I mean,
what? Right. Where's this guy? So, but this marriage pledge that was saying that it was controversial this week because it says that children in slavery were better off because they were being raised in a two-person household, which is not true. Which is not true. That's not exactly because the slave owner was like, "Oh, I'm for traditional marriage, so I'm gonna have you guys love each other and not." It just
and was home all day raising the kids.
Right, exactly. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. Right. So that there's children in slavery that had to work, in the fields when they were 7, had it much better off, according to this stupid pledge. I mean, this thing is so stupid. But then it brings up like other kind of wedge issues that were, you're like, wow, I see that the 18th century just called and they want their wedge issue back. But they also had things like women in combat, and you're like, wait
pornography.
A second. Right? No, but women in combat is something that like in 1992 sounded kind of radical, and now it's like that's please come on. There's all these kind of like, and then anti-pornography, which is right, which is like, okay, really, dude? And then asking Republicans to sign a marriage vow, which is like, ooh, too soon, too soon. You have 2 Mormons and a guy with like multiple wives legally, and how do you want people to sign? So right, it's ridiculous. But Gary Johnson, my favorite Republican, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, wow, we actually are.
Or a Republican that I'm like, wait a second, no.
Well, I love that he said government should not be involved in the bedrooms of consenting adults. I've always been a strong advocate.
This is his answer to that pledge. Please read
And
this.
liberty and freedom from unnecessary government intervention into our lives. The freedoms that our forefathers fought for in this country, are sacred and must be preserved. So he's going back to the
right. He basically he condemned this pledge outright, and he said this type of rhetoric is what gives Republicans a bad name. I would argue just a name. Because they tend to love this rhetoric. They feel that if they get a good juicy wedge issue, they can get people to the polls and decriminalize all white collar crime.
Right, and I mean, like we've said before, they want to control what you do in the bedroom, who you're with, getting birth control, getting
all
condoms.
under the guise of freedom.
But when it comes to the banks, let's just let the banks roam free.
Right. They deregulate everything financial and then regulate everything that is. We do. Yeah. And they also use and this is what drove me crazy about the pledge. One of the many things. They also called it Sharia Islam, which is, right. Which is, you're like, really, dude? Can you just read a book, please?
Wikipedia.
Right, yeah. Right, not even a whole book.
Yeah, you're asking a lot there, all right? Let's just go on the internet.
Like, what are you doing, dude? It's like, and then, because Michelle Bachmann today, or this week, was railing against and saying that she was going to overturn cap and trade. Dude, come on. Really? First off, not even the annoying thing that was actually a Republican idea. That's like a free market Republican idea to do this, to essentially tax polluters, and so there'll be a disincentive to pollute. That was a Republican idea. But A, it's not a law, so you can't overturn it. What the hell? Like, come on, just please look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. Google it.
Right, I know. But then, and then someone will go to Wikipedia and now change it to say that cap and trade is now Paul Revere warned the Brits. Cap and trade is law. And Gary Johnson apparently is a Republican. I don't know. I like him. I'm going to call him. I'm going to try and get on the show. So
I hope he call. That's all. I mean, he'd be awesome. Let's promote him.
Wait a second. But because if he's a Republican, I'm probably a Republican.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking I liked him.
Oh, no. I'm a Gary Johnson Republican, which is a normal liberal. Okay. Speaking of abnormal, I like this segment. Do you like that? Yeah. And weirdness, right? Because Sharon Angle, who ran against Harry Reid.
All I need to say is Sharon Angle.
Okay, right. She's a former assemblywoman, right? So during the election, the 2010 election, we were all convinced that Harry Reid was toast. Yeah. That his approval rating was bad and that there was this, big kind of what would later be called a shellacking. But the wind was changing for the Republicans, and then Sharon Angle became the Republican nominee. And she started saying weird stuff like, in front of a bunch of Hispanic kids, said, "Some of you look Asian to me." Mm. That was a greatest hit.
Oh yeah, that's.
She talked about having Second Amendment remedies, which was, this is Tea Party stuff, right? Extremist Tea Party stuff. Let's take up guns against the government. So Sharon Angle now has written a book.
Oh. Wow, anyone can write books these days, isn't that proof?
No. Okay, right. You say that, and this is the funniest thing to me, or this is my favorite, because I'm a jerk. It's self-published. Yeah. So all is not lost. Like, even Rupert Murdoch's HarperCollins looked at Sharon Angle's book proposal and went, no.
Did she just print it off Microsoft Word?
Well, just that a publishing company didn't publish her stuff. I find that to be emotionally gratifying, again, because I'm a jerk. And she is not responding she published this thing, it's called, Right Angle, which I want to point out, right Angle, and my favorite so far is the FARC headline, which you can get shirts made of FARC headlines because they're often clever. The FARC headline was, upon analyzing the right angle, it's actually found to be quite obtuse.
Well, I like that she says in the book that Obama has piled up more spending and debt than all other presidents combined.
Right. Right, all 175 presidents.
When really, by the way...
If you're going to make it up, just go all the way. You know, if you're not going to fact check your own book, why stop there?
By the way, the public debt was at 6.31 trillion when Obama was sworn in as president, and now it's only grown 3.5. So
right. Yeah, it's just
not true.
It's just like, you know, it's just not true. And the Las Vegas Sun and the AP went through and kind of like fact checked, which was
quite a task.
Right. If it's you know, it's like going in and fact checking The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, like,
you'd find more trueness in there.
Right. Yeah. Let's go fact check Harry Potter. Yeah, but then she said there is you know, that only because of disconnect, there's only 50% or less of eligible voters who actually vote, which is actually not true. You know, so
again, Google it, and
right.
she would have found
but
it.
The other thing is that she's not talking to media. Like, she self-published this book, which is very, you know,
and she's not
Ted Kaczynski.
She's not being a publicist as well.
But like yeah, right. So exactly, and then she's not going on a media tour, or not a traditional media tour where she's actually talking, you know, trying to sell her book. She just kind of self-published her manifesto, Right Angle.
Okay, I'll let it go.
So, you know, Sharon, if you're watching, you know, I will read every book that's sent to me. I really will, even the Right Angle.
Even if it's the wrong angle.
You know, we're not traditional media.
Why not?
You can come on our show anytime. All right. So we're going to end the show with our new favorite segment, Santorumisms. Can we play this video just in case people are not aware of Rick Santorum and his media tour? He's running for president. He's not an incumbent. Like we said, they're not incumbents, but you know, let's watch this.
Well, I've never heard that in my life. Tell me again what you just said.
If you look at the report that came out on Friday, the president's own economic advisors said that the jobs stimulus package actually created fewer jobs over the period of time since the stimulus package went in place than it did when they reported back in December. In other words, there's 30 million less jobs as a result of the stimulus package.
That's not a loss of jobs, Senator. That's a smaller aggregation of jobs. You can't go on a campaign, a national campaign, with this kind of math, Senator. It's just incorrect.
Well, sure you can, because that's not incorrect.
280 jobs. Look it up, he said. So. So 280 jobs, 80 million jobs. There's only about 300 million people who live in the United States, and not all of us are working. There's a lot of them are retired. So we thought that we would do Santorumisms, basically adding a zero to something that Obama has done to make Obama look better.
As many zeros as you want, make him even more fun.
Yeah, but look it up. So he was given a chance to actually say, no, I meant, you know, 3 million or whatever. So we asked you guys to send them in because we're lazy and we don't like to write our own stuff. And here we have MJR256 said over 600% of voters elected Obama into office.
It's a lot of people voting.
Look it up.
What about you know that Obama is the 440th president of the United States? Which, I'm so glad I got to witness that.
and more debt than all the other ones combined. It's amazing. Obama has won 10 Nobel Peace Prizes and received $14 million for each one. Look it up.
That's a lot of money.
That's from Whiter Italics.
Well, Shinius said Obama bowled a 370 out of 300. That's a good score. That's a good score.
That's an amazing score, especially for Obama. So Obama flew the space shuttle to Mars 300 times in its first 6,000 months in office.
Wow.
As Homeland Security.
Kazuga1234 said Obama's healthcare plan, get this, is going to get 300 million people covered.
Look it up.
Yeah. Oh, and also it's going to reduce our deficit by $130 trillion.
Oh. fantastic. See, I think this is how they actually do it.
Yeah.
I think they just like start making stuff up and then you go, no. Because you watch this all the time on cable and you're like, where do they come up with this stuff? They just come up with it.
Yeah.
So Obama's approval rating, excuse me, is 460%. Look it up.
Well, what about Big Via King said, did you know Obama has only made $55 million from book sales? Look it up.
Right. Right. It's the year 2011-10. I don't exactly know how to say that to make it funnier. But that's fine though. Look it up.
It worked. I love him. I just add zeros.
Right. But it adds zeros to make Obama look better. You know, he's 60 feet tall.
Well, yeah, and he also, he has 20 kids.
He has 50 kids. Right. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. He's really taken out a lot.
No. I mean, really, this is amazing stuff. So if you have one, just send him to unless Santorum kind of has a moment of clarity, drops out of the race,
Wishful
which
thinking.
he shouldn't. He should come on our show. Yeah, so send them to us on our website, on Twitter. You got it, and and let us know about it because we're not done with him.
No.
And so we'll and we'll read your names. We're not good at reading names this week, were we? We'll read your names on the air, and we'll see you next week.
Heck, you can either follow me on Twitter, one word, be there.